Howdy, folks. And tonight we are back at the Waldport Community Center where the city is hosting a workshop to communicate with people that live in the Township 13 HOA group. There's going to be several things going on in tonight's agenda. We have a history of township and roadways. We have current legal easement and access, projects impacting Township 13, including the sewer treatment plant and sidewalks, city property ownership in and around township, and assisting the HOA and legal requirements. There's going to be discussions, a Q&A period, and township HOA issues and concerns, which is going to set the tone for the next city council meeting, I feel. There should be a lot of interesting stuff going on in there, a lot of cool facts about the town and Township 13. Let's get in there and see how it all plays out and see what happens.
Jamie, but she's still at the school, so she'll get here as soon as she can. So welcome to the October 16th workshop meeting between the City Council and the HOA Board of Directors. Is Township 13 Board of Directors here? Yes, you raise your hand to let me know. Okay. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for everybody for coming. I appreciate that. This is probably the most people we've seen ever come to a workshop, at least in my experience. So welcome. Just really quickly, I just want to let everyone know that there's 3 emergency exits, one behind you, one behind me, and then the front door. And there's 2 public restrooms if you need to use the restrooms in the hall. We're going to do a roll call. So I guess Township 13, you guys already let us know you were here.
With the exception of one.
Okay, with the exception, well, the same here. Well, actually 2, because we're missing Rick Booth too. So Megan, would you please proceed?
Mayor Lambert.
Here.
Council President Dunn.
Here.
Councilor Booth. Councilor Woodruff.
Here.
Councilor Morris. Councilor Severson.
Here.
Councilor Townsend.
Here.
Okay, looks like we have a quorum.
Okay, great, thank you. I just would like to go over the workshop rules and reminders. This workshop is a public meeting. It's confined to a discussion of the topics provided. No decisions can be made at the workshop, but they can be brought to the council meeting by consensus. This is a informational meeting. My understanding it was the board of directors with the council to discuss issues that have been brought to council during public comment. Is everything on this agenda something that you guys agreed to talking about?
We agreed to letter P.
Okay.
And then I spoke with Jaime today. We wanted to stick to the original agenda, which was to be discussing the easements.
Okay.
So letter E, as in Edward, we don't feel is necessary.
Okay. And so you're okay with Jaime's presentation about the history of township, current legal easements, projects impacting township, and city property ownership in and around township?
We are, because although the meeting was voted on to have a different style, and I can read the minutes from the June 12th meeting, we are willing to acquiesce because we believe Jaime will give us a good presentation and give us information that we may not have.
Excellent. Is that okay with you, Jaime?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. All right, then would you go ahead and proceed with your 15-minute presentation?
I doubt I'll go 15 minutes, but I'll try. And I'll go ahead and apologize. This is still a workshop, even though we knew that there were going to be quite a few people here, so we couldn't set up the tables. We don't have the tables, if you will, to set up in the circular. So with the mayor's permission, we will conduct it as a workshop would be expected to be conducted, with questions wherever at your direction.
Okay, so let me understand this.
Yeah.
So you're saying we're going to run it like a workshop, and you're going to present, but then they're welcome to ask questions and discuss with us like what a workshop would be.
Raise your hand, maybe, if we need to.
How do you work?
Yeah, so I'm going to do my piece, and it'd be probably easiest if we do our piece and hold questions until afterwards. And then item 4 is the actual discussion, which is whatever the questions that the HOA might have, asking of us back and forth, et cetera. That's probably the easiest way to do it. If that works for you.
That works for me? That was what I was expecting.
Okay, perfect. So the packet here is for informational purposes. It doesn't follow those items under item 3 of the agenda. The pages are numbered. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to hit a few items on each page. I might actually skip a couple of pages because they're a little bit redundant, but it's just more for information or anything else. So the first item on there is just a quick history of the township itself. So Pat Hall came to the city back in 1976 and actually wanted that property back there annexed into the city. It was part of the county. It was not actually inside the incorporated city limits. So he annexed all that property back there. Township 13 was then platted and came through the planning and the city council and was accepted into the city. Township 13 was 34 lots that actually come down Ball, include Lundy, Rolfe, come down the corner past the RV parking station or parking area, about 3 or 4 houses, and that's where Township 13 ends. Addition 1 of Township 13 continues down Ball, takes a left, and goes almost to the bottom of Ball, but not quite. Addition 2 goes down Bird a little ways, and then wraps around and catches the last 2 or 3 houses at the bottom of Ball. Addition 3 was actually approved but never built, and the remainder of that property was then purchased by Mr. Van de Hagen, who happens to be sitting right over here, who then developed or is currently developing that entity. So that's kind of the way the approval process went. Started in 1976. Addition 3 was approved in 95, but never got built. The other additions were approved through there. I think the total build out was going to be 100 homes, plus or minus or so. At the time, there were some engineering requirements, et cetera, for the roads, utilities, et cetera. Mr. Ball kept coming back to the city and saying, I don't want to build sidewalks. He did for the first part, but then he didn't want to build for the second part. And he had a couple of objections to the amount of asphalt, et cetera, and those are captured here. But the intent was that the roadways were always going to be private roadways. So the easements that we have, which is, I guess, the main point of the meetings, we have 4 basic easements. I mean, we're on page 4 now. The first one was the utilities and the roadways. And so Mr. Ball deeded shouldn't say deeded, provided an easement which was within all public roadways for utilities, so sewer, water, cable, etc., and gave those different entities the ability to put those utilities within the roadway. As part of Township 13, Mr. Ball constructed the pump station that is at the bottom of Ball Street. And his intent, and what he eventually did, was when he was done with the subdivision, he handed over that pump station to the city to maintain and operate and own, along with the access right across the streets to maintain that facility. The second easement on the second paragraph is, and he granted this more to himself than anything else, he owned all the property up there, not just where Township 13 sits, but he owned all of the property on top of that ridge line. And so he granted to himself the right to travel across any of his properties to get to his other properties. And so he could travel across the roadways on Township 13 to get to those back properties or to get down the hill, if you will, et cetera. The way it's written is anybody who purchases any of those properties assumes those rights. So any of his successors would also have that entitlement to travel across those properties. The third easement listed here was an easement that came about in about 2005 or so, and that is an easement that comes down from Crestline, goes down past the old Pat Ball house, which is the blue house at the very top of Cedar there, down to the pump station. And that is one that actually allowed the city to build a 1-inch pressure line from the grinder station, from the pump station down there, up to Crestline. And that was an additional line that we put in there. But that came in 2005, well after the original easement had been provided. And then the final easement here is came out of some legal issues that Mr. Vandehey had when he purchased the property, went to go develop the property. The HOA disagreed with his access across the township properties. And so after a lengthy battle, the agreement that came out of that was that the properties adjacent to Township 13 could access their properties across Township 13 roadways with the understanding that as they developed, they would be incorporated or they would be brought into the Township 13.
Or township.
Yeah. And those are the 4 easements that we have as shown here. On the next page, page 5, is an actual copy of one of the easements. At the very top of the page, you'll see it says Book 127, page 1000. This is from the actual county clerk's office. This is where the county assessor, et cetera, take all of the property information, easements, deeds, et cetera, and when they put it or tie it to the property, it goes into this book and page number. It also has a date down at the bottom as to when that was done. And you'll notice there's 2 highlighted sections. The first one is the utility easements. That's the first easement I talked about that actually gave all utilities the ability to be in the roadways. The second highlighted section is the second easement where Mr. Ball gave himself the ability and all his successors to go across those properties. Next couple of pages are just a continuation of those, some of the utilities. Now I'm on page 8. Pages 8 through 14. These documents were recorded at the Lincoln County clerk's office in 2009. This is the document that came out of the Vandehey Township 13 HOA disputes. And it basically states that they have access and they will become part of a township when those homes are built. Again, pages 8 through 14, I'm not going to read that whole section, but that's all of those documents. Page 15, let you guys catch up. So pages 15 through 20 is the sanitary sewer easement that comes down the Pat Ball, from the Pat Ball house on Crestline down to the pump station. Again, this was recorded in 2005. I believe it had a couple of updates. But 2005 was when it was recorded. The language talks about the property, etc. Page 20, which is the last page of that easement document, actually has a map on it that shows where the easement goes. And so then you'll see right in the middle of the map, and I'll kind of point it at you a bit, right there in the middle of the map is where Ball ends, where the actual pavement ends. And just beyond that, there's a bunch of hash marked and lines. That is where the pump station is. And you can see one set of lines goes off to the right-hand side towards the sewer plant. And another set of lines kind of goes off to the left up to Crestline, and that's what follows. There's a little bit of a kind of a gravelly type road that goes straight up the hill and ties up to Crestline, and that is the actual sewer easement where one of our sewer lines is. And those are the 4 easements that we've got. On the next page, on page 21, this is an actual picture of the sewer pump station that's down there at the bottom of the hill. Again, the pump station was designed and built by Mr. Ball as part of Township 13, then handed over to the city. In 2005, the city upgraded it to a grinder pump, and then installed the siphon, which is a pipe that goes straight northeast-ish back to the sewer station. Page 22 is a quick map. Probably should have referred to the map in the first place, but anyway, there's Township, etc. There's a couple of green lines on here. There's a solid green line that kind of starts in the middle of the page, goes a little bit to the left, and then there's a dashed green line that connects back to the sewer, the waste plant. The solid green line is that sewer easement that I just showed you. This is shown on the aerial photo. And then the dashed green line is more or less where the connection for the siphon currently goes for the grinder pump. And that is also where we are currently, a little bit at a time, making some improvements on a little bit of an access road that would then help us get down to this area from the sewer plant and vice versa, but also be able to get rid of that siphon because it does get clogged. It does require a pump to push all that stuff through. And ultimately, we'd like to replace that with a gravity sewer. And as we go through and clear the road a little bit and add a little bit of gravel so we can go down there and maintain it, we can actually get rid of the pump, make sure that it is a gravity feed to the sewer station so that we can avoid any of the clogs that we have, and also be able to improve access to that area so we don't have to come through Township at all. So currently we've got a couple of projects. As you can see, as you know, we're putting sidewalks in on Crestline. Ultimately, hopefully by December, we'll be done with that project. It will have a sidewalk down Crestline that connects all the way down to Ball, so that the kids will have access to school. That was through a grant through Safe Routes to School. So that's going on out there. So you see some activity and some construction will be happening at the entrance to Township right there on Ball. We're also going to be working down on the sewer plant. We're currently doing some work at the sewer plant, but that's kind of on hold until the spring. So you'll see some activity down in the sewer plant area. You'll hear some trucks and things moving around back there as well. We currently own the remainder of, not the Ball house, not the Pat Ball house, but that hillside that comes down to the grinder pump. The area where the grinder pump is that extends northward to the wastewater plant. And then we currently have one lot at the end of Lundy. We had another lot over on Walt that was sold, was purchased by actually a current resident of the township. And I think that's all the property we have adjacent to touching township properties. Yeah. So then, in the last couple of years, we've had some discussions with Township regarding some of these things, but we have in the past been asked to do some maintenance, et cetera, on the roads. The roads, again, are private roads. They are owned by the HOA. The city cannot do maintenance on private property. We tell folks this in other HOAs. There's also some local access roads that are owned by adjacent properties. They don't necessarily have an HOA, but it's the responsibility of the homeowners to maintain some of those roads. So we tell them the same thing, is that unfortunately, we do not maintain the city roads, nor can we use some of the city property or machinery, et cetera, to go out and take care of those roads. We do maintain the utilities, sewer and water are ours. We do go out there if there's a break or if there needs to be an upgrade, we do maintain those. And then we will patch the road or repair the road as we have, whatever damage we do to the road through the excavation and fixing of those utilities, we take care of that. The other request that we had recently was to provide a street sweeper up on the roadway. And again, we have a street sweeper, but we can't use that on private property. But what we can do, and we may mention this to the HOA, I believe, is that there is an ability for the city to provide a grant if the homeowners association requests some assistance, put together a letter, puts out a one-page application, and through the community development fund, which is basically a pot of money that is funded through transient room rentals, we can provide grants, not huge grants, a couple $1,000s, but enough to probably be able to hire a private street sweeper, which would then be reimbursed by the city through the grant process. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for preparing this report. I appreciate that. I guess I just had a quick question on, is there other HOAs who take advantage of that grant?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay.
No, it's my understanding is that grant was set up as a line item through the budget committees. It's where folks who could come in and request some monies, and I'd have to defer to Dan. I think we have issued grants to some organizations through that.
Yeah, we do. Primarily, it has to have a community improvement purpose.
Yep.
So the grant needs to be like the pollinators ask for money, the Lions ask for money. These different organizations ask for funding because they're doing a project in town. And I think the suggestion last year was because the mass of trick-or-treaters comes to the township area, that potentially that might be looked at as a community activity in which that if they wanted to clean up the roads ahead of time, they could apply for a grant, and then it would go to the budget committee to consider that. Because first the budget committee looks at that, makes a recommendation to council, and then council would consider it at their final budget hearing.
Yeah, and again, that's for something that would be considered a betterment or improvement to the community.
Sure, especially around Halloween. I have another question. I was looking at the wastewater plant plan, and it didn't mention any of this. And so is this part of our, because it says it's a 15-year-long project.
Any of this specifically?
Just the siphon pump and grinder. I saw other things in the wastewater plant from this.
Yeah, so the siphon, and it was put in a long time ago, and honestly, it's not a good idea engineering-wise.
Yeah.
So it is basically, the pipe comes like this, it has a dip in it, and comes back up again, so you have to push through. Well, there's solids in there, and it gets clogged all the time. So it went in, was designed, was built. We're down there, and we got our public work right here, we're down there unclogging it 3-4 times a year.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes like up to a week to unclog.
Yeah, no, it was my understanding that was put in, that was holding Ocean Hills septic waste. And that adding that development to that, which was just designed for Township 13, overloads it. And so the master plan shows actually using that other easement that you're talking about, where it goes behind the ball, and then letting Township just use that siphon pump for their own neighborhood.
Yeah,
That's how I understood that.
Yeah, ultimately, we want to get rid of the siphon. Absolutely.
I would not keep it for Township.
Well, yes, but get rid of the siphon and turn it into a gravity so that instead it flows downhill, so we don't have to pump it at all. As it's currently set up, it has to be pumped. So we want to get rid of the setup, maintain that connection, but also figure out how to get sewer so that it doesn't have to go down there and get it to stay up on Crestline and around a little bit more. So that's part of the connection. So we'd be using all of it.
Oh, okay, I was confused because I thought a siphon system is gravity fed, like a fish tank where you take your pipe and it pulls the water out.
Yes.
But then when we added the extra Ocean Hills development, that put too much pressure in the winter on that system.
I don't know specifically on the Ocean Hill, and again, I'd have to go first.
I mean, I was just reading the wastewater.
If you just
plan.
had Township on there, they would plug constantly, because there's not enough flow through Township. So periodically, we have the, from up on Ball, sorry, I can't farm up on Ball, you can open up a valve or shut the valve off to allow the sewer coming from Crestline to go down there. So just depending on what the conditions are with the master and everything else, that valve's either open or closed. But if we just had Township on there, it would plug, because there's not enough
But
flow.
it is plugging anyways when you turn the
It's
master
good, yeah,
valve
and it's gonna
over.
continue to plug.
Okay,
Um,
so this project is in our master plan.
Yes, it's been identified as a problem and solution in the budget for the last several years to replace the grinder pump and to make improvements to it. We've been working with the engineer for multiple different options. One of the most significant challenges is that the north side of Crestline Drive is somewhat collapsing into Southwest Park. That is a key part of our sewer infrastructure system. And so because of that, the original plans that were included in the 2020 wastewater master plan no longer make sense. So we've been working with our engineer to come up with alternative plans that include the elimination of the siphon and moving into a gravity. That would allow us to handle a lot more volume. And again, I think that the misnomer is that it's not the increase from Ocean Hills that's causing the problem. The increase from Ocean Hills is allowing us to solve an issue with the siphon not having enough volume from just the Township 13 area to work functionally. It was poorly designed, unfortunately, and one of those things that, really we didn't uncover, that it didn't work very well, and that it's just not a very good theory until after it was well in place and had been used for several years. So we've been working with West Tech Engineering, our engineer of record, to come up with various different solutions. And the approach that we're taking right now is actually building, bringing in fill and building a roadway connection down to the wastewater plant. We were granted the property right next to it as well by the Isaac Walton League, which now allows us a contiguous pathway from that grinder pump to the wastewater plant. So the goal is, if we can build a road down through there, it will then be relatively trivial for our crew to put in a gravity line along that road base, which would allow us to switch from this siphon system to a gravity-fed system.
And so when did the city pay for that engineering report and where can I get it?
It's not an engineering report, it's active engineering with our current city engineer that we're working on currently.
Okay. All right, that's.
And
all
who
I
is
have.
that?
So West Tech Engineering,
And who is the person there?
it's the entire firm, but our primary engineer is Chris Brugado.
All right, thank you, HOA Board of Directors. I'm sorry, I don't know your names, but do any of you have
I'm
anything?
Todd.
Todd, hi, Todd, I do know you. Would you like to ask questions or present anything yourself?
Yeah, I have a couple things. So, the easement, and this is the whole reason I've been coming to council meetings, is so we can discuss this. The first easement agreement that Jaime referenced, our opinion is that particular easement is specifically regarding the utilities in front of our homes. And the easement agreement between Pat Ball and his property off of Crestline is specifically for access to the grinder station and the slough. I would also like to reference that the letter that we got from the old attorney, I don't know if you've had a chance to review that, where it does mention that, hey, stop blocking us, we have the right to access to the grinder station. And then I would also like to reference that I received an email from Dan Cutter a while later where I was clarifying a conversation that we had via phone. And Greg Dunn was a witness to the call where Dan informed me, hey, this is what we're doing. We're building up the roads down there. And you know, if you remember that, Greg, and that, you know, as we get fill dirt from different projects that we're doing around the city, that we're gonna dump the dirt down there, and then we'll be coming up through your roads. So to me, that's an issue, because if we are 100% wrong on the easement issue, the fact is saying that we have access because of the grinder station, and then telling us, well, and we were wondering the whole time, why do you need 20 dump trucks full of whatever it was to work on a grinder station? We don't think you're working on the grinder station. And then Dan let me know, no, we're, you know, a while later, I believe it was 6 months time span, no, we are not working on the grinder station. We're building up the roads down there. So to us, that's an issue, because along with building up your roads, we're trying to fix our own roads, and we want to minimize the damage. Obviously, there's only so much we can do. We want Dahl Disposal to come in and pick up our trash. Those are pretty heavy trucks. We want Joe to keep developing, and sometimes he has cement trucks come in, because the more homes he builds, the more people pay us dues. You know, so we like that, because then we put the money aside to fix our roads, and we want to minimize the damage. The other thing that Jaime mentioned that I didn't even realize or think about before the meeting was the street sweeper. If we are 100% wrong on the easement, dump trucks should not be going through our neighborhoods if they're not working on the grinder station. And the street sweeper, which, you know, we requested the street sweeper, it shouldn't be going through our neighborhood to go dump its picking uppins down in the slough either through our neighborhood. And yeah, we did request the street sweeper for Halloween or for October 30th, because we have so many trick-or-treaters. We felt it was a public safety issue that we brought to your concern. And then to have a fill out an application for the street sweeper and turn over our IRS filings to the city, I think that's overreach. And the other aspect that I always wondered about that was when, this is about 3 years ago, a contractor burst a pipe at the, that was building a home, burst a pipe up on Upper Bird, and it ran down. We basically had Bird River going down the street, and I showed up at 6:30 in the morning and pointing at not the contractor but the subcontractor. I go, "Did you do this?" And he goes, "No, it was the city." Okay, then the city guys show up to fix it. I go, "Did you do it?" Because he's saying you did. "No, this was all the contractor." I'm like, well, someone just fix it, because it's a river and there's no crab in it, so, you know. And after that happened, for whatever reason, and I believe Joe was involved with it somehow, to my recollection, the street sweeper from the city came in and cleaned our streets for us as a courtesy. We didn't have to turn over our IRS filings. We didn't have to request it, or maybe there was a request, but we didn't have to fill anything out. It was just, oops, sorry about that, here's a street sweeper. So what's the difference between an accident and keeping kids safe? It's a public safety issue on Halloween. Why would you need our IRS filings for that? And again, we don't ask these kids to come. it's not an event we schedule. That would be the Celts 2,000 years ago that scheduled Halloween, not us. And they think because we have a gate, that we have the big candy bars and that we're rich. We're not. But they come in droves and we just want them to be safe and we don't want to have to turn over our IRS filings. And I do have the opinion, the formal opinion that was drafted in response to the old attorney letter. I'm more than happy to read it or email it, but I don't want to bore anyone. It's kind of lengthy. And I know that we've all been doing a lot of listening, not that you overstep on that. But that's the point that we want to make, and I want other people to be able to ask questions. So I'm happy to read the statement, or we can table it for later on. It's up.
Why don't you email it to Dan and send it to me, and I will review it.
What if I email it to the mayor?
That's fine.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
I live at the bottom of Ball. I'm the last house on the left there. And I just want to bring up the subject of the street drains. I can't speak on the other streets in our township, but on ours, all of the drains have collapsed, below the grade of the street. And on top of that, several of those drains, the metal grates have rusted. So the bottom line is that there's holes that a little leg, a little trigger to your leg, could step into and you could be severely hurt. And to compound the problem, because of the falling leaves, these drains are, you cannot see them. They're invisible. So a child walking in the dark could step in one of those holes and be severely hurt. And so I want to bring that up as, again, I don't know, I can't speak on the other streets within the township, but the lower end of Ball has that problem. And I think that needs to be addressed, otherwise it's going to be a liability.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up.
May I speak?
Please.
Most everybody here knows me. But I'm Joe Van Day, and I used to work for Pat Ball also as a broker before I bought the property from him. And his intention was always to have entry-level housing. That's a misnomer today. The average house in there, if it's in good shape, is worth $400,000 or more. A bad one, in bad shape, is worth $250,000. So the old jokes of, no, Stalag 13 can go away with people that hold their head high. I live in Township 13. Okay, so what I hope comes out of this is a willingness for us all to work together, because I find that positive energy begets positive energy. I've gone through nothing negative. The cost of putting in streets and services is actually, a lot. And I turned that over, whether it's streets to the HOA and the sewer and water lines to the city. But I'm responsible for putting all of this in. And somewhere along the line in here, I met Todd one day, and we hit it off, and we decided to start actively dealing with the situation of the roads. Well, for some unknown reason, they decided to start paying for garbage service rather than saving the money. And then when I became president, I was going through the books, I found that we were losing $800 a month. And in 18 months, we would be bankrupt as an HOA. So my mother-in-law and I, she got on the board with me, we went to the county to see if we could form an LID. And we were promptly told no, because we have an HOA and we can charge whatever we want. Meanwhile, on the other flip side, I have people on fixed incomes that don't have thousands of dollars to throw out. So as a board, we elected to stop paying for garbage service, have people start paying for their own, and save the money. And I think we've got a little better than 100 grand saved.
Treasurer.
So we can start paving pretty soon. And we've done this in 3 years by working together. And it's not fast, but eventually it's over. And I found a very good paving contractor. The first bid I got, they said, oh, you gotta tear all this out, go back in, da, 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 da. Second guy looked at it and goes, oh, asphalt curbs. I think my grandfather did that. Because nobody else did asphalt curbs in the 70s. So he says, this road's been here that long. We're close, more than half a century. And that's a long time. And yeah, it's worn down to, maybe an inch. And, Todd, Lucky, Nick, myself, I'm forgetting his name. Jeff. So anyway, we go out there and we do little work parties and fix these things. Well, we bleed it out with Band-Aids so we can get the paving done. If there's some work at county that's gonna happen up the top, I wanna know so I can coordinate with you and not pave before you make cuts. Nothing bothers me more than seeing brand new pavement having to get cut over. So we'll save that section till after. We'll talk more later. Anyway, I think we're on the road to a good, healthy community. And I'll just, keep throwing it out there.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that. Does anybody else want to go after Jeff?
Yeah, I have a question. It kind of looks to me like on this first one on page 5 of the easements, this therein, which references inside the boundaries of the HOA. See where I'm coming from? And so, do you really have access with your dump trucks or not? I don't believe so.
Can I address that just for a little tiny bit? When you bought your house and closing documents, you got that brown book.
Oh, I still have it.
Anyway, it says in there about owners, successors, assignings, and heirs. And that was the argument that I had with the previous board. That cost me enough money that back then between Township's attorney fees and my attorney fees, we could have paved all the streets at that time. That's how silly it was. But the bottom line is, access is granted. That's it. There's no, you can use a truck on this day for this purpose, but not for this purpose. There's no designation saying what, because otherwise I'd have the same problem. So I have open access through Township to my property to complete it exactly as Pat had started with. Upon completion and occupancy, you become part of Township 13. Now the feature that I have is I'm pouring mine in concrete and steel, so the chance of having maintenance on that section will be quite a ways down the road, but the $45 that each of us are paying for the lots we put in go toward the asphalt section that we have to cross to get where we're at. Now, if the city now has property
is it's that road that they're putting in, which doesn't really affect Township. And I agree with the road, but I think that they're not looking at it properly. One, they're dumping stuff in there for fill that could damage our wildlife. It also, there's also changes in the water patterns when we have those lovely Pineapple Expresses, and we know how water will cut things. Look at Beverly Beach.
Every time I work on mine, I have to watch the next rain to see what happens to divert my water into the storm drain system.
Exactly.
That being said, I brought fill in also.
And that little creek.
Because I brought in topsoil. I did a project down on the corner of Yahas River Road in 101, and I took that dirt and brought it up there because the sand, when it was scalped, that's the easiest way to describe what was done when Pat started developing it in the 90s. he took a D9 in there and he scalped it. Well, that sandstone, it takes a claw hammer to dig, but if you add 2 drops of water to it, it becomes beach sand, and geologically speaking, is equivalent to the bay shore.
Yeah.
The same sand.
And you know how the 3 foot against their garage doors are leaking.
So that's just an ongoing project that's everybody gets to deal with it, whether it's the city or private. You know,
But my fear is you get a car on that road and it, like an avalanche, just goes.
Can I specify what roads we're talking about?
You're talking about the road that you're currently building down on your property. And see,
From the grinder
in
down.
2009, there was an engineering evaluation on that, and I spoke with you about 2 to 3 weeks ago about that.
Yeah.
And have you looked it up to see what that said?
I could not
And that's
find.
why it was nixed off of the master plan. Was it because-
No. I could not find any studies that you were referencing, but that is not a public road.
I recognize
It was
that,
never meant to be a public road. The
But-
master
but you're
plan,
willing to risk your employees?
I don't see the relevance about this. The road down there that we are talking about is an access road for maintenance to be used by city employees or their contractors only. It's not open to the public.
I recognize that.
Permitted?
It doesn't require a permit because it doesn't connect to a county road or a state road.
Yes.
I looked it up.
So I have a question, because I'm not familiar with your case, Joe. I just learned about it in this packet. If you don't mind me calling you Joe. It's only because I have a hard time pronunciating your last name, so I'll call you Mr. B, if that's okay with you. But in your situation, so what you were saying was that your property is landlocked and you needed to go through township to get to your property. And so the court said you were allowed to do that, but anything that you developed then became property of the HOA.
actually, it wasn't a court. We were in a courthouse, but it wasn't a court proceeding.
Right, but I'm just
We
saying the
ended up
decision
with,
was.
we ended up making an agreement, which was nothing more than what the agreement was originally, but I changed some of the CC&Rs, one of which is like 24 hours notice to enter your house.
Right,
Okay, I ixnayed that. I have fences I can put in my front yard and TV dishes on, these didn't exist when Pat put it together. Now, this was all done in good intention, that should somebody fall or get hurt, that they could get into the house and help them. The sad truth is, we've had that happen 3 or 4 times, and people will go days before we find out that they've already been deceased. So, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So,
well, I guess.
little by little, the association is working on, we'll get to those, but dealing with the street was first, and I believe a lot of the concern rose basically from one subcontractor driving too fast in a dump truck. And I know the guy well, he's worked for me.
Sure,
And I just said, Jimmy, slow down.
right.
That was it for me.
Yeah, because there's 2 little, at the time, there was, you know where they're at, right by the yellow house, by the RV. They pop out on their bicycles, my gosh.
So it wasn't
Behind
a
a
public,
bush.
it wasn't a public works dump truck? These
It's a
aren't
Jimbo that they hired.
It was a contractors that were hauling the dirt to the, okay. Well, so I guess I just was curious. 'Cause
Well, there was another day that, and this is only time in my life, I had some subcontractors pouring concrete in my street. The concrete showed up too late, and these jackasses turned the truck away. It was January. I added hot water and calcium, so it would set up and you could work with it.
Right,
Problem is, it's going off. Concrete doesn't dry, it cures, and we put an accelerant in it. So they're turning the truck away, which I had to pay for, while these guys are charging me for their time. I don't use this firm anymore.
well, I noticed.
And he had to get out of there, hell bent, you know, and people called, hey man, the cement truck is tore out of here pretty quick. I said, yeah, because he doesn't want the concrete to harden his drum. But, you know, I mean, it was a simple explanation, and
Right.
But sometimes things happen.
Sure. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, my name's Barbara Young. I just want to clarify the roads that are being built there. I thought I heard earlier that that road is then going to be used for the gravity system to change the sewer from what it is now to a gravity system. Is
So
that
by,
correct?
by creating the roadway, so it's very thickly forested down there currently. So by clearing out, doing the roadway improvements, et cetera, then allows you to have a corridor that you can excavate very easily to place the gravity source.
So that road will be to our benefit eventually.
Yes,
It's a better sewer.
Well, it's never gonna be public.
it's not public, but
It's
it's
not a separate
It'll be a better sewer system.
It'd be like a
It's the
driveway.
backside of Walton Woods Nature Conservancy, so the conservancy is right behind, I'm staring at it. out now.
yes.
So you have Walton Woods Nature Conservancy that will never be touched. You
Except for
guys,
this road going through.
except for that road.
And the trail work.
Yeah, and the trail.
If I might add, that Nature Conservancy
Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore. The Isaac Walton League in Waldport dissolved, and they donated that property to the city.
Aw,
It's now city
don't ever
property.
touch that.
Oh, well, that's our trail.
I will bring my daughter in here. That's how I
It is exactly
Yeah.
as it is.
Don't you touch that.
Hey, Mayor.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing right now is you guys are trying to fix your roads. We're trying to fix our roads. So Joe's right. He had to like go to court and fight and do all that stuff just to get access, but he's landlocked. You guys have another way. If we're trying to fix our roads and you guys are trying to fix your roads, can we just stay out of each other's way? And I know this is a workshop and you can't make a decision, but it's something I can totally bring up at the next council meeting. I could probably find the time to come.
Mayor, if I may.
When you're going to use it, let us know.
My understanding is none of the contractors are using your road anymore. They're all
No,
We haven't
they're all
for
going
6
the other
months.
way.
If I might
I've
say,
been for quite some time.
since I live right at the bottom,
Yeah.
the dump truck contractors are doing a fine job. They're using the road coming up a press line. They pull around the pond and the pump system, they pull through the gate and they back up. They're doing a great job.
So they're not accessing the
They're
gated.
not accessing the gate. I would know it, because they have the right front.
Actually, he's got a really great little wildlife system in front of his house so that they would get soaked with water if they drove in front of his house.
If I may,
Oh, yeah.
may I add real quick, a temporary safety solution to the problem that I addressed regarding the cricket groups. Since we're on the cusp of that, if perhaps the city of Waldport Public Works could deposit orange safety cones at all of the drain grates, so that way a child, would not be able to accidentally step on it. And they could place those on Halloween day, and do that.
I'd also like to.
Are you, when you spraying, you change the also.
And then maybe we could put plywood and, so they're completely covered on the vents.
Yes, very good.
Yes.
Actually, on Halloween day, my road hits its 28 days. So all my orange cones will be coming down and I can put them on all of our,
I think.
Do I have plenty of
I
cones?
think we have that.
Think so?
Okay, all
I'm
right,
even
Robin?
thinking about
kind of momentous,
Something in the whole, like where I
name on both
rented.
sides.
the house I rented, there's a
Yeah.
Casey
For
Fisher
sure.
was saying, I'm gonna break my leg going for a walk.
Yeah.
So, if you put something in there and then put a cone on top of it,
Yeah.
I don't care, it could be a sandbag.
I have a quick question now on the roads that they're taking. Is that road safe year round for the trucks to go, and I've never been on it?
Yeah, ever since Teresa's stood in front of the truck,
Uh-huh.
and it wasn't Billy, it was a crazier truck driver than Jimmy.
Oh, I know, I've had a couple of
But me and Dan had a conversation about that back road. We had it work done on it, and we haven't had a truck in there since.
But in the winter.
At one time,
raining,
a truck went in there and came out, and I found out about it, and I had a talk with him, that wasn't good news. And I said, we don't use township anymore. Not because we can't, it's because we don't feel if we have an alternate route, we don't need to be
Why
in
muddy it
township.
up and just get the rock and whatnot?
So
Yeah,
any
'cause
trucks
didn't you
that come
send
in
a
there is
picture?
Joe's fault.
Pretty
much. You're right.
I remember after I was sworn in that I had gotten told that there were trucks again, but I can't remember what the date was.
I believe that was around,
It was in February.
it was,
Last year?
yeah, in the,
Early
yeah, around
this year.
February, and that's when, that's how I got, an email, from Dan, because I had called, and like, hey, Dan, what do I tell the board? What's going on? Because they're running through again, and so that's where I got the clarifying email from.
Okay. But it's now the understanding that the city is not using that for their dump truck drop.
We don't use it, it's not worth it.
Okay, well, good.
So just to clarify, the last I heard from Dan was they were dumping stuff on the road, and then the empty trucks would be coming back up to our neighborhood. Is that not the case?
No.
I think we fixed that road.
We
so
built the
can-
road good enough where empty trucks can come back out.
They're
Which
doing a
that
good
was
job.
6 months ago or more.
And so the road is finished?
No, so the road they're referring to is the actual sewer easement that connects up through the old Patton Hall property up to Crest Line.
It was just in rough shape.
I think
today.
the
Trucks couldn't
street's
make it
name
up.
is Agate.
So this was the communication that
No,
we were
it's not
asking
Agate.
for, that
No,
it
it's-
was.
It's a different one.
Oh.
It doesn't have, it's not a road.
Oh.
Okay, so when I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, well, these are the pieces of communication that we're asking for, and that's what we were encountering, total communication breakdown, and the I'm right, you're wrong, get a lawyer. So, that's where it was broken. And why couldn't this communication just happen without I'm right or wrong, get a lawyer?
I can't answer that, but I do have to say that I appreciate that Todd came to every meeting for the last year and a half and continued to ask when he was told he wasn't allowed to ask. I mean, that's ultimately what happened in June, was he asked and council said they did want to hear, and then that was how it was put on the agenda, so.
Well, thank you all for meeting. This is exactly what we were hoping for. I mean, it didn't need to go this far and get so contentious. I feel like we're all pretty reasonable, but why? Why did it have to be so contentious?
Well, I think the road just in the last 6 months got fixed so we can use that going back and forth. Yeah, we weren't able to do that. So that was something that we pretty much put a rush on to
Well,
really try to work on that road.
but you see, there could have been that line of communication, oh, this is what we're thinking of, this would be the end goal, this is the timeline. Would have shut us right down. But it was just a few sentences. And it
Well-
could have avoided so much contention.
I'd just like to say that, Todd came regularly, but the way he presented it to us and the way I remember it was that he always wanted to be on the agenda to discuss our right over the easements. That is a legal question,
Well-
and that's why we continually told him that is not something that we can settle.
Okay, but, so he might have used the wrong word.
Well, no, we
Shut
didn't.
down communication over a word.
No.
Yeah.
We just kept telling him that isn't something we can solve. That's
And-
why we'd say, get a lawyer, because
And-
we've had a
More
lawyer.
questions,
Yeah.
more clarifying questions.
Yeah, to clarify that, when I did say, you told me, no, get a lawyer, it's a legal issue, and I said, who's the judge, what's the case number? The only time we got anything was we got a letter from the old attorney.
Okay,
That doesn't make a court case.
no, but
Attorneys send letters all the time, I'm sure he can tell you. So we never sought legal advice, and we clearly communicated that we are not getting a lawyer.
Right.
We will defend ourselves.
yes, you did,
And-
but you still were asking us to make a legal decision
We were
about
asking-
your,
What we were,
no.
what we were asking was to be heard.
Well, but that
That's
isn't how
all we
you
were
put it.
asking
That
was to
isn't
be,
how you put
was
it.
to be put on the agenda so we could explain our position.
Todd, I thought,
Go ahead.
it could be wrong, that you questioned our attorney's letter.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
you said, I don't believe this is right. And we were saying, we can't go against our attorney. If this is what he said,
Right,
we can't fight back and forth on that. That was what my understanding was, is you disagreed with our attorney's findings.
Right.
Can I say something real quick? I think it's like, if you think about it, just as a, outside of the city council or whatever, would you wanna spend money on a lawyer?
No, and I
You don't
totally
wanna spend money
understand.
on a lawyer, I think it's just that easy, anybody doesn't want to, so when we think about problem solving, we gotta think about what the end goals are, what people want. You know what I mean? The city's trying to do this, we want this, nobody's thinking about that, everybody has their own agenda, their own piece of mind, whatever, but we have to come to like live together in the same world, right? And it just seems like everybody's got like, it's just frustrating to me that I got a note on my door yesterday for a meeting today, right? I don't know. It just seems like, why are, I don't know.
I think,
I'm just frustrated.
I think the city heard you from the beginning, and we certainly heard you from the beginning. But we felt like, I did,
Yeah, exactly.
Sue did, and I think the rest of us probably did, that this is something we cannot address. What we didn't do, what we should have done, is say, we're gonna move as fast as we can to not have to use that road anymore. And not travel through Township 13. But we couldn't do that at the beginning. But they got on their horses and got the job done, and so it's no longer necessary. So, I think, we should apologize for that, for not alerting Township 13 to what we were doing to remedy the problem that you rightly asked about.
Right, because.
That's, to me, it's a slam dunk, you're absolutely right.
Right.
I would like to say.
Oh, I'm sorry, Roger.
Grandpa Wade had his hand up.
I would like to say that I own a road that is shared between 5 houses. They have easements on my road. I have to honor those easements and let them into their houses, and they're bringing trucks and stuff in. But I agree, we all need to work together, and both sides need to realize that easement is an easement. And, communicate better, both ways.
No, our interpretation was the easement was for the grinder station. What we actually saw was the city seemed to use a road at their pleasure.
But that's like I'm saying, that's your interpretation of it. An easement is an easement.
But that's what we saw in the neighborhood, dump trucks running through,
It wasn't the grinder station.
the street sweeper running through, and, which I never understood, like,
But,
okay, I have
but
to
no
turn over
easement
the
has a
IRS
set
filing,
thing
just
of
pull the
what somebody
lever
can
that
drive
puts the
on my
little speeding
driveway.
thing down while you go.
This one does.
Okay, the gentleman, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there's two
Wayne.
gentlemen who've been asking to
That's
speak.
Wayne.
I would just like to say thank you for having this workshop. I'm a newcomer to Waldport, only 10 years, and I've been trying to find out for 10 years why the city street is not a city street.
Now you know.
This explains it pretty well, this opening letter about the history between Mr. Ball and the council. Of course, that council is long gone. Mr. Ball is gone, it's all water under the bridge. God, I wish I had been forced to read something like this and sign it to acknowledge that I understood what I was getting into buying the HOA.
Yes.
I mean, I got a carbon copy of,
Is it not your
the CNRs or whatever, CCRs, I couldn't read them, you gotta sign it. The realtor says, this is an HOA, I said, what's the dues? Yeah, okay, no problem, I bought the house. My street's falling apart. Not so much the street, but the storm drains are literally collapsing underneath the street and it's caving in. My question is, down at the bottom here, and it's highlighted, obviously Mr. Ball was trying to save some money. He wanted low-end housing. There was a contention between the city and Mr. Ball. They wanted it done more properly. My question is, in my mind, I know streets are expensive, but they're the top coat. That's what keeps the water out of the ground. Who is responsible for the storm drains?
Is-
We are.
All right, why is the city, may I ask, whose contractor put the sewer drain and the city water in? Was that a Ball contractor or a city
No,
contractor?
that was Pat himself. He was a CB in World War
Okay,
II.
all right, he put in, obviously these streets were put in before the lots were sold. Was there
Many
any
of them.
oversight of his workmanship or
Of
his
course, yeah, by
contract?
Public Works. Even, I'm inspected for the work I do. I
Okay.
hire an engineer and then we go in and we do the work, whether I hire Jimmy or somebody else. That's why I say, I know who Jimmy is, I've had him work for me. And then either Jaime or, thank you, Mike. I'm hurting because I need surgery in about a month. Anyway, they come out and inspect and make sure the work is done properly.
In your
So
opinion,
there is an
since
oversight.
you're a developer and you're working in our neighborhood, are our storm drains, were they done in a quality manner?
They were done 50 years ago, and had there been the money kept, instead of paying for garbage service, there would have been plenty of money to do this. Lucky is who brought it up first, saying instead of paving the streets, we should fix and I have to agree with him on that.
And
But
the
we can
others
only do
that
it so
finally
quick.
got us straightened out
And
to
so,
be paying, 50 years of that money could have been going to road maintenance.
correct.
And storm drains.
So in 3 years, Todd, Nick, Lucky, myself, we gathered it. Wendy's been a crucial on this, and just gathering the money and saving it to fix our roads. Because oddly enough, it's required by law. It's a statute that the HOA maintains the streets.
They thought 10,000 was sufficient.
Yeah.
They thought
When?
10,000.
They were wrong.
So this is.
Well, if you're doing it yourself, maybe it was.
Heidi, this is basically like, just like, the very short version is the reason we're here is because me and Joe and Lucky and Nick, we all realized we had this huge issue. And we did a lot of work to fix it.
He's our current
And
president.
then,
Okay, nice to meet you, Lucky.
and then when we finally got our act together and we're like, okay, we're gonna fix these roads, then here comes dump trucks through our streets and we're like, what are you doing? And basically the response was, I do what I want, get a lawyer. But no, we don't want any more damage on these things, we wanna fix this.
And then outside of this has nothing to do with the city, none of this was disclosed when we purchased our homes, that we were ultimately responsible. That is a huge baby switch, I feel like. It would have altered all of our decisions. It doesn't say that in here. Nothing is spelled out.
None of this stuff was in your closing papers for the title company?
Not
It might have been in the closing papers, but not up front when you're initially looking at the house.
They made you sign off.
It gets glossed over for the sale.
It does.
It's in that booklet.
So,
It's in the CCNR booklet. Everybody wants a deal to go through.
so I have a question, please. Okay, so the catch basins and storm drains that are in our neighborhood, aren't they considered utility? And couldn't they be considered fixed by our
Maybe.
current easement for utilities that we have?
No. And to answer Wayne's question as well. So the roads were built by the developer.
Right.
It also included all the utilities, storm drainage, water, and sewer. We, the city, took over water and sewer, but did not take over the roadways, did not take over the storm drainage. Those were held on to by the HOA. And that was the intent of Pat Ball.
And I understand worry.
And from the beginning. So those were the storm drainage, the roadway were the property of the HOA. So the life expectancy of any of those facilities is about 50 years, 40 to 50 years on a roadway, on any of the utilities, et cetera.
My house is 49 years old. It was built in 76.
Yes, but, you know,
When
as
the
far as,
original roads were put in.
and as far as the engineering world is concerned, if you do nothing to something for 50 years, it will fall apart, will need to be replaced 100%. That's why you have a maintenance cycle, et cetera. Those roads, to be honest with you, and the storm drainage probably have lasted longer than they should have. But again, they were the property of the HOA, not the city. The city, at the very beginning, had said, you will build to our city standards. And we accepted the sewer and the water, but we did not take over the roadway and the storm drainage. That stayed within the HOA.
That brings up the question of, okay, that, I can understand that you wanted it to be a quality job, but looking back at it from the city's point of view, it was kind of a sweet deal. You got these houses built and you started getting all the tax money rolling in, but you didn't have to take care of the streets in Waldport. That got put off on Mr. Ball and the HOA. So you've seen somewhat of a win in that situation, that's a group of street that you don't have to take care of. Now, my point of view is, had I bought a house on, say, Crestline or down by the golf course or whatever, that would be truly a city street. Now, looking at my tax record, I'm in road group 3, Waldport taxes, it's roughly $50 a year. I assume that I'm paying the same taxes as all the other Waldport citizens. I have no qualms with that because I drive on every street in Waldport. But over 50 some odd years, the city of Waldport has not had to put any money into the maintenance of those streets. That was put off on the HOA. The HOA owns it. You guys got a pretty sweet deal out of it. So I don't see any place on there a discount, a slight discount to the homeowners of Township by virtue of, oh, they're taking care of their own streets. The fact that we muffed the job and didn't save the money like we should have.
We obviously would have preferred that they were city streets, built to city standards, and we did maintain them. In fact, you know, that was in a day when he could object and they said, okay. And that's one reason why now we do not say, okay, people have to do to city standards if they're gonna do a development. I mean, just look at Treasure Cove down there, the glamping place that's coming. They had to put sidewalks 3 sides of that whole area. That's code. Of course they didn't like that. They would have liked to have written a letter like Mr. Ball did and said, you know, we really don't need them, you know, blah, 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 just like he did. But no, because for the good of the community, we need good streets and good sidewalks. And you can see the number of places that we don't have them because people were let off from actually doing what the code asked.
Okay, just 1 minute, she's very patient.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to check something. One of the reasons that the street belongs to the HOA is because it's not a standard city street, it's narrow.
Yeah, well,
And
that's what he
often
wanted to do.
HOAs build narrower streets so they can cram more homes into the HOA, make more money, and they don't build a big street.
Right.
Now, I learned about that because I moved here 3 years ago, and I came to board meetings. And I read my CC&Rs, and I worked on the board for a while and helped with the annual meetings where we passed some things that needed to be passed. I was there when we decided that we wouldn't pay for garbage anymore so we could pay for roads. So we also have an annual meeting every year, and our CC&Rs are hugely old and need to be rewritten, and we need a 2/3 vote to do that. Right now, it says that we can come into your house and inspect your house.
Yep.
I don't think you want that. So I'm saying that if you are interested and want to know about the place you live, come to board meetings. They're open once a month. I think you post the agenda out in the glass enclosure. And if we get enough people coming to the annual meeting, we can actually make some changes to the CCR. So I think you have a responsibility as an owner to find out about the place you live and what your responsibilities are and are not.
Thank you for that.
So, what would stop the city from getting together amongst themselves and then approaching, Township 13 with the proposal that they take over storm drainage maintenance?
I think that that's a proposal that would come from I think you would have to vote at your annual meeting, that that's something that you all agree with, and then you would bring that proposal to the city. But I don't know, maybe if the city would even take a proposal like that.
So we would have to make the first step, and then you would respond to that proposal?
Correct. Yes, and the response to that would be, we would love to take over those streets and the utilities, et cetera, if they come to us in an improved or as-new, and we would take over at that point and continue taking care of them at the very beginning. That's the same thing we told Mr. Ball.
Okay.
You build to city standards, and if they are built to city standards and we approve, we sign off, then we would take them on as city streets. At some point, and it's unclear in the record, and I apologize, some of this stuff happened back in the mid-70s and early 80s, so it's hard to find the exact sequence of the event. But at some point, he decided he did not want to build sidewalks anymore. He also decided that a portion of the roadways in some of the earlier phases were going to stay gravel until he finished a future phase. And at that point, he'd already told us that he didn't want to put the asphalt in, he didn't want to do a sidewalk. We have a couple of letters to that extent. And I'm not so sure that we stayed on him, if you will, that the roadway is built to city standard.
Given the limited funds that the HOA has.
Understood.
They're struggling to work on putting asphalt on the street. And then the drain system is yet another bill.
Mm-hmm.
And given the fact that the HOA is required by law to maintain the streets as a whole, I'd like to see a compromise there where, let's say the HOA says, okay, Waldport, we'll take care of paving the street if you'll take care of upgrading our storm drain system, and by both efforts, the street gets completed as a whole.
And just to add on to what he's saying, and also what Wayne said, we all pay that road tax annually on our property tax statements. You figure 84 homes times $150 times how many years? It's about $300,000.
So, Mr. Blake, can a city and an HOA create an MOU and a memorandum of understanding, an MOU? Is that something that happens?
It could happen, but the rest of the city voters could sue the city for laying out an expense on privately owned, taking over privately owned roads.
Even if they're paying, like they're saying they're paying their taxes.
So the rest of them though.
That's for your primary roads, I was led to believe, because you're maybe not Highway 34, but virtually everything else off Crestline Drive. I know how expensive it is because I'm in the middle of doing this stuff, and I know how much groundwater we have. So as you go up Cedar Street, you see that nasty, all choppy, it's because there's groundwater, hydraulic pressure pushing out. It's not broken pipes, it's just groundwater. The first time I found it at my property, it had frozen. And I had big sheet ice down at the very bottom. Bird had no catch basin on the south side. And so I called it Lake Bird. This thing stretched from the fire hydrant to the center of the road, deep into my property. And I mean, it'd be 8-10 inches deep. So little by little, I worked on getting drainage in there, but it had frozen. And I sat there watching water running underneath the ice. That's when I realized that, and then when I dug in to put in my water system, the water line in August, left overnight, came back, the ditch was full of water. So I actually had to put a pump in there. So you can only work certain times of the year anyway, because once the groundwater's going, you can't even keep up to it with a pump. So some of these catch basins, we're going to, Lucky and I have been already talking about it. We're looking for where do we get the grates, how do we want to fix this? And, we're gonna take money from the paving and put it into our storm drains because they're ours.
The company that actually made that equipment isn't available. They went out of business 25 years ago. It's Salem Metal Works. I can't even find that dimension of a grate. So now you're not having your money. No, we're having the same problem.
This is why I said, let's get
We have
one a
the
little
same
bit
problem.
larger, because we're gonna put a lift in
It's
it.
just a
And I
budget,
can
some basic.
make a form to hold the
Right.
larger grate over the top of that. And
Right.
we can save a fair amount of money.
It's not like we got 3 streets going into one big catch basin. It's not a big project like that.
And if it's
all
really
light
bad,
basins.
we can do exactly what I did at the far end of Bird, where I had to take out the catch basin in order to put in the sewer line, because it was on top of it. So I built myself my own storm drain with an 8-inch line coming out of it, with an easement for Township crossing. And that's that dry riverbed looking thing between Mom's house and John's house.
We came up with a plan. I wanted to do stage 1 first, because that's where we want to asphalt first. That's the worst condition road up there. I can't find a contractor that wants to do the job.
To come back to your question, Mayor, legally, it's kind of like me having a paved driveway, living in the city and saying, hey, I don't want to repave it. Will you come to a memorandum of understanding with me to have the city
I guess
take
that's what an
over?
easement is. I guess easements are the member that, it's just a different thing.
Yeah, the private roads in the township are no different than someone that's paved their own driveway. And,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, I'm done.
I just wanted to say that we have 10 minutes left, so does anybody from council have anything to say?
I will. I think, Todd, I'll apologize for myself. I think we definitely could have communicated better. It was kind of a situation where, we should have sat down and had a workshop, I guess. And I apologize for that. But, we're trying to work with Township the best we can. I know me and Heidi had a meeting with Dan last year about the street sweeper. She wanted the street sweeper, and Dan said it couldn't happen because it's private streets. We came up with an idea that would allow that. And it's just like with the Lions. The Lions needed new flags to better the streets. They did the exact same application. They had to show their financials. And I'm not sure why. It's just like Beachcomber, anybody that wants money from the city. So it just wasn't you. That was just the process. But that was a way for you guys to get a street sweeper in there without, us doing it and being in any kind of trouble.
For clarification though, it's the HOA's financials, not their personal financials.
Right. HOH, yeah. Yeah, not their personal. And then,
And more specifically, if I may, more specifically, the HOA is required to provide a financial statement to every homeowner within the HOA every year.
And they get it.
It's in
They
the
get
ORS.
it, they get it.
That is that same financial statement that's.
that's the only thing we needed.
It's the same thing. It's not, you wouldn't have to do anything beyond that. It's the same documentation.
Well, the application letter that we got said, we want your IRS filings.
I think that was,
That's
yeah.
all, that's all.
That's what we were wanting.
Right.
So that was a way for
Right,
you.
nomenclature, the same.
So that's a way for you guys to get the streets swept before Halloween. And,
And to your point, Greg, I don't think, that, I don't think you're out to get me or anything like that. I think what happened is this whole process is I was coming to these meetings with the concerns. The Beachcomber thing happened a couple months after. We got overshadowed, so I do appreciate you guys setting time aside to meet with us. I prefer this over the retaliatory tactics that have been going on. I don't appreciate them, they're disrespectful, and I hope they go away, and that's all I'm gonna say about that.
I think this is a great idea. I mean, I really do, having a workshop. I just want to say, So a lot of us council members, we have our own little projects we want to work on. I could tell you, me and Jerry live on the same street. We had our mailboxes, those lockable mailboxes, put in. I don't know, how many of you guys have mailboxes on Crestline? What? Terrible situation.
They won't let me put them out
I
there.
talked to Dan and figured out, can we somehow work on a way to get a grant to get mailboxes for you guys, the lockable kind? That's something we're working, that's my pet peeve, if I'm still around. That's my project for this next year is, I hate that. I know you guys have to stop in the middle of the street, but it's terrible when you're coming down Crestline, someone puts their hazards on, and they get out with their car parked in the middle of the road and go check their mail, and you got a line of cars. I just think it was a bad idea, but I'd love for you guys to have the locking actual mailboxes.
I wanted to put them in,
Huh?
where that overflow parking is, and have the mail person so that nobody's on Crestline. They can pull into the overflow.
Yep,
We can get out, we can put.
that's
Okay,
one
we're
of
a
the
little
plans.
straight off.
But I just want to let you know, we want to work with you guys.
Gentleman in the back.
I have one comment about the city possibly or not possibly taking over the street sidewalks piece there. And what I would suggest perhaps would be to look at the idea of maybe having a phased integration or a phased takeover perhaps. Just want to present that idea.
That was my question. Is there a path forward where we could eventually share financial responsibility for the road and the mailbox?
I think maybe already answered that question.
I think if they're brought up to code.
The attorney said that we can't do anything special for you guys because we'd have to do it for everybody.
We'll talk to you in 20 years, because it'll take us about that long. At $45 a month.
There is a way to do this. And it's relatively simple, and we do have some communities that are making an effort towards this. To turn over a road, for the city to adopt the road as a city street and take over financial responsibility, it has to be brought up to current city standards, city code. Right now, I have not seen in the documentation from the HOA a current reserve study. That is something that actually the state statutes say that needs to be done at the HOA level to provide a full accounting of all of the shared resources that the HOA pays for. So for example, your gate, your roads, the sidewalks, if you don't have them owned by the property owner, and the catch basin system, the rain drain system. The way to start that process to figure out a timeline and a way to do either a phased or a full takeover would be to get that reserve study done so that you could figure out whether your dues are sufficient to be able to pay for the improvements necessary. And I say dues sufficient. When my mom passed, I inherited a very poor condition condominium in Portland. The dues at that condominium were more than her mortgage payment, substantially, because they had done a reserve study and found that in order to take care of all of the amenities around there, even though the buildings were falling apart, the dues had to be increased. And that's very hard for an HOA to look at, because often the idea of increasing your dues substantially is very hard to come to terms with.
Even a little bit.
Yep, which is why the most important thing that you can do though is get that reserve study so that you at least have the information and know what you're responsible for and what the legal requirements to be able to do those, because then you could say, hey, we're not going to be able to do all the roads in 10 years, but we could say do a block in 10 years and then another block in 10 years and slowly work your way through all the different roads, because it's not getting cheaper. The email that, or the letter that Pat wrote, the email didn't exist back then, but the letter that Pat wrote when he said, I don't want to put in sidewalks, said that each sidewalk would cost the property owner about $1,000. That seems like
Scoop that right up.
Yes, please. Right, I want that.
All right, so we've been here for an hour and
I
a half.
have one more question. So, okay, we know that you wanted us to fill out the paperwork for a grant to get the street sweeper perhaps approved. Can we lease or rent the person that does your street sweeping for our neighborhood and pay them outright?
I believe it's a city machine, isn't it? Or just-
I mean, I know that I know firsthand that
someone that you don't like in our neighborhood, he paid for the street sweeper to come through the last time they came through. Steve.
No, Steve's a liar.
No, Steve. He paid for that man to come in and sweep our streets.
I don't think he's still in business.
I believe that, I'll see.
I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe we can lease or rent the person.
LC Highlands pays somebody to comment. And so possibly you could contact that board and see who does this.
Who is it?
LC Highlands HOA. And talk to their board and see how they're doing it.
And it would be cheaper than if you contracted with the city.
Yeah, it would.
I think we should just all sweep up from our home, get a room with us.
It sounds like we're gonna have to because Halloween is not far away. All right, anything else to be said by the council? All right, thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight. I really appreciate everybody, this dialogue feels very healthy. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, folks. That was the workshop for the City Council and Township 13. That seemed like it was a fairly productive conversation between the community members and the council. Hopefully that washed some bad blood out and got it out underneath the bridge and moving on. And that there can be future productive conversations between the township and the council. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be happy to see you on the next one. Catch you there.